again, I want to thank you all for joining us. I'll try to just give some brief updates. Of course, I really want to bring attention to our beloved Joycelyn Johnson, and maybe once everyone is here, we can take that time to take a minute to just think of her and to honor her memory. So we'll wait on that. But we did have a wonderful summer, even though we weren't able to get together as a committee. Some great things happened. So one is that we were invited to Boone, not to Boone, to Hickory for part of their Juneteenth celebrations. And so I ended up presenting on the history of Juneteenth at one of the major county libraries. And there was a very good turnout, including a number of wonderful African-American retired educators who came to Teachers College and came from Hickory to Winston-Salem and studied with us, and then went on often to Ivy League schools and taught up north and came back. And so they have really fond memories of their time at Winston-Salem. And I think they would really enjoy seeing a kind of relationship between our city and their city. And so we had fruitful discussions, and they were particularly, the community members who came were very impressed with our reparative justice approach, as well as our way of organizing our material, the way that we hope to make our oral histories available. And so they're actually going to use our format for organizing their celebrations next year. They plan to reach out to us over the next year before Juneteenth and possibly suggest some joint activities together. So that's exciting because we see now that we are setting a really wonderful model. Then, of course, we had our own Juneteenth, and Miss Annette was there, as well as Miss Beverly. And so they really circulated and brought people in and just really represented well at our booth. And so we were able to record 4 or 5 wonderful oral histories. So that was a great event. And I would say that there's been an interest by Spectrum TV to do a report on us, because a particular reporter, Miss Sasha, actually had come to our table at the Juneteenth celebration. She didn't know what we were doing, but she was very, very interested. And so we're hoping to set up something where she'll do a special report on everything that we're doing. So a few other things. I guess Mr. Flynn, who's here with us, and we are continuing to plan to work with our WSSU interns. We are starting to organize for a project specifically on our founder, Dr. Simon Green Atkins, and looking at his relationship to the development of business in Winston, Black business in particular. So good things are happening at WSSU, in terms of what we're doing to continue our work with AAHI and on behalf of AAHI. And we're, so proud to be a continuing part of this project. So those are my main reports for now. I will also say, shout out again to Miss McCullough. We had a wonderful couple of great conversations, and I learned so much from her, and she shared about all the resources that her office has in terms of research materials that we could use for pictures and all kinds of wonderful sources that I hope I'll take a look at. I hope all of you will as well. And I'll definitely have my students take a look at this so we can bring this into the narratives that the city has charged us with creating on behalf of AAHI. So, Ms. Annette, do you want to share about Juneteenth? Because you did so much that day and you were out circulating while I was in the room recording. So you might have a little more to share.
People are interested, but I think they just don't, that was maybe not the time for them. So I think if we have another opportunity I took a couple of names and I'm going to follow up with those people who would still be willing to do an interview with us or talk with us. But it's obvious people are interested, or if they don't know about it, they know somebody. And so it was a good chance to network and identify some other people of interest who probably do have a lot to share. So it was a great opportunity.
Thank you, Ms. Annette. Yeah, I think whatever events are out there, the more that we can circulate, we may not want to take oral histories, recordings at every event if there's a lot of background noise. But I actually spoke to Mr. Flynn about that background noise issue last week, and he might have a solution. So he might talk about that later today. But I think that we need to use these city events as a time to really connect and put ourselves out there and really celebrate in the community what we're doing so we can get more people involved. Thank you, Miss Annette. So I think Mr. Gerard is with us, so we have a quorum. So we can circle back now to roll call and then attend to our minutes from our last meeting. So Ms. Carlin, could you call roll, please?
Yes. Chairperson Phil Gomez.
Present.
Mr. Durrell.
Mr. Drury, we can't hear you, but we see you, and I think you were saying present. Okay.
Mr. Fulton.
Present.
Mr. Scales. Ms. Williams. And Ms. Wilson.
Present.
Thank you, Ms. Carlin. Well, we can move on to adopt the minutes from our last meeting, which I believe was our June meeting. So could someone please make a motion to adopt the minutes?
I move that we adopt the minutes of our June meeting.
I second it.
Thank you. And Ms. Carlin, could you call for the vote?
Chairperson Phil Gomez.
I approve.
Ms. Wilson.
Approve.
Mr. Fulton.
Approve.
And Mr. Durrell.
Mr. Drury, can you give us a thumbs up if you approve? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. So our minutes are approved. So I believe we can turn everything over to Miss Wanda at this point.
Oh, Chair Villa-Gomez, we're still under the chairperson's updates. We still have the Historic Resources Commission and the moment of silence for Joycelyn Johnson.
Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you.
That's okay.
So yes, can we have our visitors from the commission? We welcome you, and we're eager to hear what you have to share with us today.
Okay, can everybody hear me and see our screen?
Yes.
Looks like
Yes.
I'm getting a yes. So again, I apologize that there is no image of me speaking. I cannot share my PowerPoint and use my camera at the same time with my work setup. So apologies for that, but you'll have to look at Michelle. So Michelle McCullough and I, Heather Bratland, are the two historic resources officers that staff the Forsyth County Historic Resources Commission. Most of our work revolves around issuing permits for changes people want to make to properties in our locally designated historic districts. But one of the fun things we get to do is manage a historic marker program. And that is what we are here to talk with y'all about today. So before the creation of the City County Historic Marker Program, the images on the screen represent what the memorial landscape in Forsyth County looked like. We have a couple of Daniel Boone monuments, which are the arrowhead looking marker that you see in the center of the bottom. The lower left is, of course, the Confederate monument that used to be located outside the county courthouse. The equestrian statue of R.J. Reynolds arriving in town that's near the City Hall parking lot. Most people are familiar with the coffee pot down near Old Salem, representing the Moravian history of town. And then we have some state historic markers, which the one in the lower right corner is representative of. This one is about our tobacco history. So, you know, we had some Civil War history, tobacco history, and Moravian history represented, but not much else. So in 2001, and I believe Alderwoman Johnson at the time was instrumental in helping get this program created. So connects with honoring her legacy today. The city of Winston-Salem created a historic marker program, and the first markers were installed in the city in the following year in 2002. The city council and the aldermen have agreed to fund 2 markers within the city per year. And then in 2015, the county commissioners came on board and they fund 1 marker to be installed in an unincorporated area of Forsyth County per year. So this map represents the locations of the 69 historic markers that have been installed since the program was created. We have 8 in Forsyth County. We have 2 in Clemens. They don't have their own marker program really, but when they are interested in doing a local historic marker, they run it through our office. And then we've installed 59 in the city of Winston-Salem. So our historic marker committee meets annually to receive and vote on the historic marker applications. That typically happens in November and December because our marker applications are due on October 31st. And we actually just got our first new marker applications for this next round of markers to be installed in 2023 over the weekend. So that was exciting to come in and find those on my desk. So the marker committee listens to presentations from the marker applicants, asks questions, reviews those, and then scores those applications. And then based on the scoring, recommends the sites to the full Historic Resources Commission, which then approves those locations. The marker committee is also responsible for reviewing the text of the historic marker and then attending marker unveiling ceremonies in the spring and fall. We try to hold them during Preservation Month, which is May, and then in the fall, because the weather's cooler, we try not to do it in the heat of the summer because it can get quite uncomfortable. So our historic marker committee, the way it was initially structured was 2 to 4 members from our Historic Resources Commission, and then 1 to 3 members from the community at large. And we currently have 4 members from our commission and 3 members at large. From our commission, both of the members, or all 4 of the members, I should say, are white. And then our community representatives, we have Cheryl Harry, who I'm sure most of you know and are familiar with. And then we have 1 white male and 1 white female. So our committee is not very representative of the community at large or the goals of our marker program, because one of the things the marker program was intended to do was to recognize underrepresented history throughout the county. So in July, our Historic Resources Commission held a retreat, and we talked about this issue as it relates both to the composition of our overall commission and as it relates specifically to the Historic Marker Committee. And so our commission decided to invite a member of the Human Relations Commission to sit on our marker committee as an ex officio member, and then to invite a member of the African American Heritage Initiative Committee to sit on the marker committee as an ex officio member. So we met with the Human Relations Commission in August, I believe, and Robert E. Leake, who is their chair, and also had been involved in the marker program. He actually nominated the East On community for a marker. So he was familiar with it, and he's agreed to sit as a member. So that's why we're here talking to you all today, to invite you, one of you, to be a member of our committee. So I mentioned scoring, and I'm not really going to go over all of this in a lot of detail, but we have certain required criteria. The thing that's being recognized, be it a building, a person, an event, has to be at least 50 years old, which in the world of historic preservation is kind of the age that we use to judge whether something is historic or really not quite old enough. That gives us enough time to really assess how that thing may have impacted history. It can't be marked currently by another marker or another program. So we've had some suggestions, for instance, that out in the county, we do a marker at Idols Dam. Well, it already has a marker. It has a state marker. And so that is not something that would be eligible. The marker location has to be in a public right of way, and that's really just for the ease of installing it and maintaining it, so that the city DOT who does that work for us can get access to the site without trespassing. Obviously, the marker location has to be in public view, because the point of this is to educate and engage the public with history. And then a historic marker has to be an appropriate form of recognition for the site. Our highest priority criteria, as I mentioned, the goal of the marker program really is to represent underrepresented history and tell stories that people are not familiar with, perhaps. So does it tell us about a lesser known historic site? Is it connected to underrepresented history? Is it a building that's gone? In which case a marker may be the only thing that tells somebody that something historic used to be located there. And then an event maybe happened at the site. So looking at the building today, you wouldn't necessarily know, like the Woolworth, the building that remains downtown where the sit-ins occurred. Looking at that, you wouldn't necessarily know that something historic had happened there, but there is actually a marker there, not one of ours, placed by somebody else, but there's a marker there to let us know that something happened there. Our middle criteria are for an endangered or threatened site, an existing building, a historic landscape, or a person or organization. So the George Black House in Brickyard, which is one of our local historic landmarks, also has a marker. It's both a historic landscape because it includes not just the building, but his brick kiln, which was in the rear yard of the house. The house itself is still there. And of course, he himself is very significant for the role he played in teaching handmade brick and going to Africa or Guyana, excuse me, and doing that process, and then also he was very important in the preservation world. He's doing the handmade brick that was used for reconstructions in Old Salem, Williamsburg, those kind of places. And then our lowest priority criteria give a little bit of extra points to locations that are not near any other markers. So, putting it in kind of a new part of the city or a new part of the county, whether it will have an impact on the present community, like help creating a sense of neighborhood pride, for example, having an impact on preservation. So recognizing a property where somebody may have done a really amazing rehabilitation and restoration job. And then in the city, our markers have actually really become very competitive. And so if somebody applies several years in a row and they get real close to being at the top and getting awarded a marker, but they just don't quite make it over that hump, they'll get an extra point for having scored highly for 2 consecutive years. So this is an example of our scoring criteria from 2019. So the columns that you see represent the different members of our marker committee scoring. And then obviously the scores are tabulated out at the end. And the way it works is the 2 highest scoring marker applications in the city are awarded markers, and then the highest scoring application in the county is awarded a marker. So in this case, or this year, it was for Loman Pauling and the 5 Royales, and then Liberia, Africa, and Salem. These photos are from some of our unveiling events, which are really a lot of fun and community events. So at the upper left, this was a marker unveiling we did this summer in July. Actually, no, it was right at Juneteenth. We did it for the Boston community. So it was right outside Ralph Adams' home. The Safe Bus came. People got to get on the bus and take pictures. It was really kind of like a homecoming for a lot of people who had grown up in that neighborhood and in that community. The one in the center was one we did earlier this year for St. Phillips Moravian Church, recognizing the site where the church had its sort of first official meeting, where the congregation was founded, which is actually right at Carolina University in West Salem. The one in the upper right is from the Salem and Liberia, Africa marker. That one was coordinated with when a delegation from Liberia was actually going to be in town. And so they had a big parade up the street. There was drumming, there was African dancing, there was a libation ceremony. The lower right corner is for the Winston-Salem Rescue Squad, which was something that none of us knew the history about until they applied for a historic marker. But it was actually the first rescue squad in the state of North Carolina, and it was only the second rescue squad in the country. One of the gentlemen who was instrumental in founding it had lived in Roanoke, where he was a member of the first rescue squad. And when he moved here, he brought that idea with him and founded that rescue squad that became a real model for rescue squads around the Southeast. In the center is one we did for a historic farmstead that's out near Pofftown. And then the one where everybody is hiding in the shade of the magnolia tree was on a very hot day at Loman Pauling's house. That was the unveiling event that we did for him. So we asked our marker committee members to come to these events just to help host, hand out programs, talk to people. So often you all are collecting oral histories. So often when people come to these events, they want to share their history and their story and their connection with the marker subject with people. And so the events are wonderful opportunities to hear somebody tell their history, and the marker committee meetings really are too. We had a couple of years ago, my first year, we had Virginia Newell come, and she got up and talked about what First Baptist Church had meant to her and how important it had been in her life. And, she was just sharp, and it was just incredible just to listen to her talk. So I think it's something that all of you who are involved with this effort would certainly appreciate being a part of as well. So with that, our question now is, who is interested in working with us or potentially being a member of our marker committee? It's certainly not a decision that you all need to make today. It could happen at a future meeting, but really we're talking about attending one meeting a year, which is usually by Zoom in the evening in November before Thanksgiving, to listen to the marker applications and score them. And then attending a couple of unveiling events, which are things that I think, most of you would enjoy. Those are generally on a weekend in the mid-afternoon, and they last an hour or so. So it's not a huge time commitment, and we certainly hope that one of you might be interested in working with us. And Michelle and I are happy to answer questions that you all may have.
Heather, thank you so much for explaining the process and the organization. And I will just say again publicly that in the spring, excuse me, my interns and I worked extensively with the online presence. So for every one of those 59 Winston-Salem city markers, there's a wonderful PDF and with a beautiful picture of the place and a great narrative. So those were very instructive narratives for my students to work with, wonderful evidence. And we recognized one thing that stood out for us as we were working with this material all spring was how strategic the commission had been to privilege the underrepresented. So we really, I can't remember now, but we counted and we saw that overwhelmingly African-American people and places were the best represented. And we felt that that aligned, of course, with the equity we're seeking with the reparative justice, obviously, you know, historical knowledge of people who did so much but have not received their due. This is part of the reparative approach. So I had mentioned to Michelle, but I just again want to publicly really praise and commend you all for what you have accomplished this far. And I think that alignment of the digital presence to the physical places is wonderful.
Thank you. We appreciate that. And we would really like to make our marker committee more representative and not just have it be the sites that are recognized. So that's why we're here talking to y'all today.
I have a question, this Annette. When you talked about the city allocates, or it's in their, I guess, plan that 2 sites are approved per year, correct?
Yes.
But there is an expense to the organization or body that does want to do the marker, correct?
No, there's
No.
no cost whatsoever. So the city pays for and installs the marker. So our streets department does the installation for us. Michelle and I do all of the work on the PDFs and so on that Chair Villa-Gomez was talking about. We do all that research and writing, and then we plan, and with the assistance of the group that's applied for the marker, but we plan and host the marker unveiling events. So Frank and the team from marketing come out and they film it. They put them on WSTV. We do, you know, social media presence. We mail invites. We do programs, and the city covers all of that.
So Mrs.
Okay.
Wilson, you may be thinking of some organizations, if they don't get selected, do choose to purchase their own. It's called
So that's an
self-funding.
option. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it has been in the past. It is going to be something that's going to be carefully examined in the future, though. Again, too much of a good thing is too much of a good thing sometimes. So, but you may be talking to community members that will say, we had to pay for ours. They chose to do that at that time, but that is another policy that's being reviewed right now. But I can see you probably run it, because we've recently worked with a couple neighborhoods who had maybe like 100th anniversary coming up or something. They were like, we really wanted this year. And if they didn't get selected, they went that route. So just in case you go back and talk to somebody and they say, you know, there have been situations like that. So,
Right.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought I had heard in the
Yeah.
past, so that's why I was
Yeah.
asking.
So
Okay.
like First Baptist Church was getting ready to
Yes,
have
sir,
a major
yes, sir.
anniversary. And so they wanted to have it in time to celebrate that anniversary. And I think they were the number 3 scoring application. So they didn't get one of the city ones, but the committee can, or the commission, I should say, can award no more than 2 self-funded markers a year. But like Michelle,
Self-funded, okay.
right. But like
Okay.
Michelle said, that is something the commission is looking at, you know, how they want to continue to do that. But it is something that has been done. But even when with that said, if the applicant group ends up paying for their own marker, generally speaking, we still do the unveiling event, do
Right.
the invites, the program, all of that.
Okay, okay. And I heard you say that if they've previously been recognized, they don't qualify, but if they do this recognition, does that usually in turn also eliminate that location for recognition by other entities as well? Is that kind of the common thing, or that's just your?
That's just our
Okay.
policy because it's
Okay.
limited funds and limited resources.
I got
We
you.
would rather mark something that hasn't already been recognized.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So as Heather said, we would really appreciate having one of you join that committee. Again, we are not pressuring you today to make that decision. We were lucky enough, Mr. Leak had actually applied for a marker, and so he had that experience with it. So they almost nominated him for that to come on our committee. But if you guys would like some more time to talk about it, please don't feel like you have to give us a decision today. But we do have a marker cycle coming up very quickly upon us. So we'd love to have someone. So if one of you are interested, raise your hand and we'll take your name down. So
I am interested.
awesome.
Oh, great.
Awesome.
Mhm.
We'd love you, Mrs. Wilson, to come on board. So great.
Thank you.
Wanda, at least with the Human Relations Commission, you wanted them to take an official vote. Do you need that for this committee as well?
Yes, that is correct, Heather.
So I would nominate Miss Annette Wilson as our AAHI representative for this Historical Preservation Marker Commission.
I
Chair
second it. Now.
Gomez, I'm sorry. Is that a motion?
I guess it is I don't know if it's a motion. I wanted to at least put the nomination out there, but
Okay,
do we need to make that motion?
yes, if you all are
Okay.
going to vote, someone needs to make a motion, yeah.
So I make the motion. I move that our committee accepts Miss Annette Wilson's as our representative to the commission.
I second it.
Okay, and now we can take the vote, Ms. Carlin. So we have nominated Miss Annette Wilson to be our representative, our AAHI representative for the Historical Marker Commission.
All right, Chairperson Villa-Gomez,
Approve?
Ms. Wilson,
I do vote for myself, yes.
Mr. Dara, and Mr. Fulton.
Yes.
Yay, so Ms. Wilson, you are our rep. This is
All right.
wonderful. Great.
Thank
news.
Glad
you.
to.
Thank you,
Thank
Ms.
you.
Wilson. And I already have your
Sure.
contact information since we've been in touch recently. So I will reach out to you in the next week or so to welcome you and share a little more information.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you guys again
Thank
for
you.
letting us come here today and for participating, and hopefully we'll have more collaborations in the future. So I think Professor Villa-Gomez and I got lots of things plotting. So
Yes.
I was just, as y'all were talking, I was thinking, gosh, our marker unveiling events would be another great time to do oral histories,
Mhm.
even though there are,
yeah.
there is background noise, but there are often so many older community members that come out to these events. So just something that, especially now, Ms. Wilson, with you on our committee, maybe that's something we can coordinate.
Yes.
I was thinking the same thing. I got really excited because I've been thinking, where can we go and how can we really reach out? And I think that would be, those would be perfect opportunities.
And we hate to play and run, but we've got an HRC meeting that we have to get set up for. So we're actually live, so we've got to run. But thank you guys so much.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Thank you
Thank
again,
you.
Wanda, for
Thank
all your
you.
help,
Yeah.
and Carlin as well. Thank
No
you.
problem.
Bye.
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 So, committee, I thought it was just so touching when Heather mentioned that our beloved Joycelyn Johnson had really been instrumental in putting this program in place. And, so it's such a beautiful connection between that commission and what they've accomplished, and then having her with us. So I would just, some of you I know her much better, but I had some wonderful experiences working with her on the Union Station project, as well as on the KP Reynolds Art History project. And I was always so touched by her quiet and calm and very kind spirit. And I've heard Councilperson Scipio say so much about all of the things that Ms. Joycelyn put in place, that we saw the fruition. It took a good while for certain seeds that she planted and watered so diligently, but finally, even years after she was out of the position as councilperson, there was great success, and she was such a humble person and so caring for making the lives of the whole community, and then even individuals, as she worked as a professional social worker. So she really touched my life, and I'm just very blessed and humbled that I had the good pleasure and honor of knowing her. Before we do our moment of silence, and we know that she cared so much, well, let's remember how gracious and loving, how she showed such loving kindness and respect for Miss Penn, and really challenged us to recognize Miss Penn in the best way. And none of us knew, or at least I didn't know, and probably most of us didn't know, that she might have been dealing privately with health issues. But I'm just grateful for her. And so before we have the moment of silence, I would welcome those of you who knew her and watched her grow in her position to just share fond memories of her.
I'd like to take this opportunity. We grew up in the East Winston area. I was on Graham, and they were right off of 8th and Graham. And her sister and I were classmates. Dorson was several years ahead of me, but she always was someone that other people looked up to in the community, other classmates, fellow classmates, as well as, she had a great constituency in the community. And I am so happy that as part of the 50-year reunion celebration for the Atkins class of 1971, we honored 3 distinguished alumni members, and Ms. Joycelyn was one that we had honored on June 4th. She was not there, which we just, didn't think, other than they said she was under the weather. We had no idea what she was dealing with, but her son was very gracious and brought wonderful remarks on her behalf. But it was just fitting when her sister said to me, or not fitting, it was just touching to know that my class had been the last class to honor her for her work in the community. And we were just so proud of her as a fellow alumni of Atkins High School.
Thank you, Miss Annette. Would others like to share? All right, well, let's take a minute and just honor her memory. Thank you. So I believe we should move on to our director's report.
Yes, thank you, Chair Villa-Gomez, and I will be brief. Just wanted to mention that we do have AAHI vacancies, as Chair Villa-Gomez just referenced. And I would just like to encourage each of you to please think about those who may be able to serve on this committee and who would have the time and the passion and interest to serve on this committee. It would be great to be able to get some nominations to the City Council no later than October so that they can vote on those and we can get those vacancies filled sooner rather than later so that it can help to expedite the work that you all are about to undertake and continue to undertake. So I would just encourage you to please think about those who would have a strong interest in this area and who may be able to make some meaningful contributions, of course. Secondly, there has been a program, actually, this has been announced here in the community called Rooted in Race, a community's journey to school integration. And that is a joint project with the Winston-Salem Foundation and Triad Cultural Arts. And so I know that our former AAHI member, Cheryl Harry, is heavily involved in this project. And actually it's an exhibition that is supposed to happen in November. The dates are November the 3rd through the 19th. And so as a part of that, they are anticipating a school group to tour once or twice during the week. And they're also saying they're planning a weekday lunch and learn and community conversations on the Saturdays in November. And so they would like to actually have the exhibit to include artifacts and pieces from other exhibitions. And when Councilmember Annette Scipio learned about this, she thought it would be a great tie-in with the AAHI. And so I wanted to bring that up to you to see if you all would be interested in partnering with the Winston-Salem Foundation and Triad Cultural Arts, because they have also said that after the exhibition, that any pieces, photographs, things like that that they collect could be uploaded into the AAHI Digital Archive. They're willing to do that. They're willing to share all of that information with us. And so as that's an exchange for potential partnership or sponsorship by the AAHI. So that would require discussion and a vote too. So just wanted to know what your pleasure is when it comes to that exhibition.
I think those are wonderful groups to partner with. We all know what great work Ms. Harry has done with Triad Cultural Arts. And, you know, and I'm still humbled by the fact that I replaced her on this committee. She's just done so many wonderful projects, and she really is a visionary and will do anything on behalf of our community. And of course, we've already partnered with the Winston-Salem Foundation in co-sponsoring the redlining exhibit. So I think it would be wonderful if we could collaborate and co-sponsor their event.
So Chair Villa-Gomez, we would just need for someone to make a motion unless others had discussion points or questions.
I move that we partner with Triad Cultural Arts and the Winston-Salem Foundation for this project.
I second it.
Hey, Ms. Carlin, could you take the vote, please?
Mr. Fulton,
Yes.
Chair Villa-Gomez,
Approve.
Mr. Darrah, Ms. Wilson.
Yes.
Okay, our sponsorship and collaboration is approved. Thank you all.
I will be sharing additional information too as we receive it. So yes, thank you. And so this exhibition, by the way, will happen at Union Station. So that's quite fitting, is it not? You all finished talking about that, and Ms. Joycelyn Johnson's tie-in with that. So we're going to learn more about the program details, about the logistics, exactly what's being planned, so that you all can have some discussion about it as well and provide your input and feedback. So all of those details I anticipate coming for your next meeting in October.
Okay.
The next item is the 1836 Liberation Day information item. And some of you may be aware of the connection between Happy Hill and Liberia. I just learned about this recently, and Chair Villa-Gomez, I bet you already know about it, but I'm not going to quite do this justice. And I let Councilmember Annette Scipio know that I wouldn't do it justice because she couldn't be here, but she wanted me to mention it. But apparently back in the 1800s, there was a person who was a white male who wanted to live in Salem with his family, and his wife was ill, and he had a Black servant, a slave, who lived with them. And so Salem at that time, of course, would not allow the Black slave to live there in Salem. And so there was a farm that he bought that was Happy Hill, what we know as Happy Hill. He located there so that he could keep the slave to take care of his sick wife. And so eventually, to make a very long story short, after time went on, he wanted to go to Salem again. And so this time they said, of course, said the same thing. And so what he decided to do was to liberate the slave. He was like, well, fine, I'll liberate the slave so that I can move back or move to rather Salem. And so of course he could have sold the slave or done some other route, but he decided to go ahead and liberate this person. And so that was something that was considered, I guess, quite out of the ordinary back during that time. And so the slave, along with some others, actually relocated to Liberia, and this man, this slave owner, actually paid for this person's way to go to Liberia, because that's where the slave wanted to go. And so I know that there was a lot of migration to Liberia at that time, because of course there, they could be freed persons and do whatever they wanted or needed to do in this newly created country, pretty much for the purposes of receiving freed Blacks from the United States. And so, but the thing was, he paid for it all the way from A to Z. And so it was something that was unusual, and it was something that was celebrated or should be celebrated. And so Winston-Salem has had this unique relationship with Liberia up into today, I understand. And so Council Member Scipio wanted to bring this information item to you because she is proposing that there be some type of commemorative event for the day that all of this happened. There's an exact date for when they left the United States on a boat out of New Hanover County down in Wilmington to go to Liberia. And so that date, I do believe is, I don't have that jotted down in front of me, but it's towards the latter part of October. And so she was thinking about all kinds of things that could be done to commemorate this event, including the AAHI as a part of that commemorative effort. And so that is all I have. It's an FYI. So she will be bringing more information, I'm sure, hopefully at the October meeting as well. And Frank, your name came up as well, because we know that you are the extraordinaire when it comes to documenting all types of community history, whether it's as a documentary or otherwise. And so I just wanted to give this to you as a heads up to see what you all thought about it.
Flattery will get you everywhere. All right, so true confessions, I was multitasking because it is employee review time. So I was monitoring the conversation about Liberia. I heard something about an event in October. I know that we're supporting a little celebration the Liberia Association of the Triad is having in the end of this month. But what's happening in October? Are you talking about that gala next year they're planning?
Yes, the gala is what Councilmember Scipio had in
Yeah,
mind.
a year from now.
I didn't know if she'd spoken with you. Okay.
Oh, yeah, she has given us forewarning.
Yes, and she is projecting for 2023. But
Yes.
the date, of course, I can't remember the exact date in October, Frank, when the boat shipped off to Liberia. But anyway, there's a
Yeah.
specific date that she wanted to target. But she wanted to know what the AAHI thought about that.
Yeah, no, we'll, you know, when the time comes, we'll be doing what we're asked to do.
Yes.
And I know Miss Annette, right before she had to leave, she said she supports our sponsorship of that or participation, and I certainly do. And I would add that, excuse me, even over at Winston-Salem State, there's been that connection. We had a dean in recent years that was from Liberia, and we had special connections with universities in Liberia. So our students and faculty and administrators would visit one another. So that's just a continuing history of sort of how special Liberia has been in our community.
And you know, we have a sister city relationship with, I think it's Buchanan is the name of the city in Liberia.
Yes, that is correct. And so hopefully this can be discussed in greater detail in the coming months, if not October, then in the coming months, as we are looking at perhaps considering participation in October 2023. And so Chair Villagomez, this is a segue into city staff updates as well. And that was really the biggest city staff update that I had. Frank, did you have anything?
Do not.
Okay, thank you. And so we're done with our sections, Chair Villagomez.
Thank you. I did forget one thing that was important, and that was the proposed I guess it was it wasn't a fellowship, but it was what the intern did over the summer, who's now departed. So it was a grant that she worked on. And so I know that some of your staff have continued to work very hard on that, and I'm going to be taking a look at it and maybe making some revisions so that we can submit that application by the deadline. So I just wanted to do another shout out for all of your staff who have worked over the summer so hard on that application.
Thank you.
So, and I don't have anything else. Does anyone have any questions or anything to share before we adjourn for today? I looked up the date of our next meeting would be Wednesday, October the 5th.
Yes.
So any other thoughts or stories to share or questions? All right, then I believe, thank you all again. And I believe we can adjourn for today.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
You too.